There we go. So how we're going to approach this monstrous settlement, I have a worksheet ready to go that if you find yourself in a pinch and you're not sure where to start or how to go about building a place where people live and conduct business, have ceremonies or farm, there is so much information for you in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And the worksheet that we use is built to provide that framework for you. The skeleton upon which you can put the meat on the bones, huh? Put some meat on your bones. Just as we do when we randomly build characters, we're going to randomly build a town, or a settlement, really, a region. I have to say this community is awesome and very welcoming. Thank you so much for that sentiment, Kitty Bird, and I hope that we always earn that from you. What beverage do I have tonight? I have an apple drink. An apple-flavored beverage. Now, to draw on some more inspiration besides what we're going to find in the Dungeon Master's Guide, we also are going to be using the Player's Handbook a little bit, and Volo's Guide a little bit, because we need to know some culture, some inspiration from the races that we might generate. And of course, to find out who we have living here, we're also going to be rolling the prominent races off the table here. And I also have the 5 characters that we generated last week, so we can draw inspiration from them for features or events, terrain, things along those lines. So first things first. Yeah, Old Port. And you know what, Old Port, if you haven't seen us go through this yet, I would love your input if you think that we've created a pretty good sandwich by the process. We're going to start in the Player's Handbook, and we're going to go to page 68. And the reason why we're doing this is because both Druids and Rangers have mechanics that feature one or several types of 8 major biomes that exist in D&D. I guess Underdark optionally, well, it could be an option, or you just simply call Underdark a cave system or something along those lines. It doesn't have to be the Underdark as Faerun knows it. Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. All right. So what I wish to do here, I want to roll for 2 types of terrain. I'm sure you could have something that's just in the middle of grassland or is just a mountain community. Nothing wrong with that. But what's beyond the mountain? Or do we want to describe something as mountainous swamp? And how would that work? Mix it up. It'll challenge you to think in interesting ways. How do you have a swamp in the middle of a desert? Or how do you have swamps and mountains? Or a desert and a forest? I don't know. I'm baffled. I'm stumped worse than a legless dwarf. But you know, to help us find out, let's roll 2d8 and look at our prompts, and we'll build the community step by step from there. 3 and 4. 1, 2, desert and forest. Well. You're pretty sure caves and Underdark are listed separately in normal D&D? What is normal D&D? I haven't heard of this. Time for me to head out. Thanks for the fun. Have a great night. Yes, O'Sheeps, thank you for joining us, and travel well. Safe travels to your destination. Normal D&D is in the books. That lists things. This is a book that lists something. This is the player's handbook, and it has a list. What else are you talking about, XCat? From this point, we are going to go over to the Dungeon Master's Guide. I went too far. There we go. And I'm going to roll a percentile set to find out what kind of government rules over this region that is going to play host to these multitude of monstrous races. I'm going to need a percentile roll for this. You mentioned something about using Underdark for caves, and I just... No, I get the comment. I just don't understand what normal D&D is. Or at least because you mentioned a book with lists, and I'm like, well, but these are the 8 biomes in the player's handbook, so... unless that you were referring to something else. But the Underdark could just be caves or a cave system. And if you don't like any of those 8 for your ranger or druid, make up one of your own. You know, maybe mix and match. Were you born on a taiga? Then, you know, mix something with Arctic and grasslands. Or Arctic and forest if you prefer. Percentile set. 58. That is going to put us... a matriarchy. So a matriarchy or patriarchy. The society is governed by the eldest or most important members of one gender. Drow cities are examples of theocratic matriarchies. For each is ruled by a council of drow high priestesses who answer to Lolth, the demon queen of spiders. In that case, we could almost go through and roll again for a, you know, we have maybe a set of rulers, but how is it ruled? That could be fun as well. 71. A monarchy. So we have a matriarchy, monarchy. A bloodline where the women are favored to rule. It's in this, so, you know, the first daughter might be the inheritor or something along those lines. I got you, XCat. Hey, Orc. So this afternoon I was able to play out the scene where my druid explained how, despite his mentor dying, he must have his home again and continue adventuring and searching for the source of the evil killing the forest surrounding his grove. Did you really... Did you lean into it? Did you really have a good time? Were you emphatic in your delivery? Did you stand at the table for it? That would have been cool. All right. This is a personal choice. But when I make a city, or a county, or a state, or some equivalent of a province, or even we want to take it broad and we want to say it's a continent, I like having 3 different unique features. And the Dungeon Master's Guide offers 2 ways to randomly prompt yourself to think about what could exist in this area. There are monuments that exist, and monuments would be outside of the terrain. I mean, we could put in, you know, we could say that the forest is itself a draw or something unique, and that's fine as a natural occurrence. Though with monuments, these are more the works of the people who live there. They'll have significance. They'll draw the eye. And there's a weird locale on the next page, which is more of a supernatural occurrence. and can also get attention and make your place memorable. I'm going to roll 3d20. Our first 2 are going to be monuments, and our third d20 is going to be for a weird locale. Four, 7, and 15. 4, 7, and 15. Referring to the book, number 4 is giant statues carved out of a mountainside or cliff. And number 7 is ruined or toppled obelisk. Old Port Media saying, so forests with a desert in them IRL, the New Jersey Pine Barrens, known for a special type of white sand that is used for making godlike glassware. It needs nearly 0 processing. And perhaps we can draw that as inspiration. Oh, so that was a dramatic encounter, Orc. And you spoke from your heart and your character's heart. That's really good. Now, weird locale number 15. What is that? A haunted hill or barrow mound. Now, depending on the scale, if we're going to create a region, like a state or a province, this could be itself kind of a, the Lonely Mountain, except it's haunted. If we're creating, something the size of a county, has a couple cities in it, and a lot of farmland, this could very well just be that's the old haunted hill. So the PC's bump into someone in the street at the start of the session. I'm walking here. Hey, I'm walking here. Yeah, exactly, Old Port. Oh, that's excellent role-playing, Orc. Man, I feel like I'm there. I'm getting the play-by-play here. You're going to go for a walk? Hey, thank you, X-Cat. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. I'm sorry for the confusion on my end. I must have been misunderstanding what you're saying there. But go have a good walk, and hopefully we'll see you around. Yeah, hey, we'll be here. We'll be here, X-Cat. Now, for the dominant race and the minority race, I mean, you could mix this up and say, you could list 5, and you don't even have to call it a dominant or a minority. I use those terms because the race relations options can. You could even just roll whatever 5 different races and then apportion a general percentage, almost like a census count or some other demographic. Now, there are 13 monstrous races in Volo's Guide to Monsters. What we're going to do to figure out what our dominant and minority races are going to be, we're going to make a 13-sided die, and we are going to roll it twice. Seven and 2. Looking at Volo's Guide to Monsters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The dominant race of the region are Kenku, and the minority race are Bugbear. Now, None of our 5 party members are either Kenku or bugbears. Well, we have a goblin, and bugbears are cousins. They're goblinoids. And so this is going to make for a very interesting explanation for how we have a party like this that is in a region or a settlement that is primarily run by people who are not their kind. That sounds like a cacophony. Well, let's have some fun with this, old port. And yeah, be excited for that scene upcoming, Orc. Continuing to scroll down. Here we go. There is all these are D20 rolls. What's the race relations like? The ruler status, notable traits of the region, known for its whatever, and there's a current calamity of some kind going on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to roll 5d20. And we have 17, 20, 6, 12, and 17. Well, we've cast the bones into the augury dish. Let's read what the portents tell us. For race relations, on a result of 17, the racial minority are rulers. So that would make the Kenku, they're dominant perhaps with the number of the number of Kenku that exist. They're dominant in that respect, but they don't have political backing or political clout or capital. They don't have they don't have a voice in the laws of the land, or otherwise. The Kenku are serving the bugbears. The ruler's status. So the bugbear matriarchal monarchy here. The ruler's status is a religious leader. And so in this case, the queen or some other monarchical title is also sort of like a pharaoh. You are the king, but you're also God. Or you are seen as the head of the state. The church and also the state. What is a notable trait about this region? Or city, or whatever we'd like to call it here. Number 6. A river divides the town. This area is known for its, number 12, gambling. And lastly, there's always something going on. Every city in small town USA or big city USA or anywhere where you live, there's always something happening of some variety. And in D&D, it's no exception. Now, this may never manifest as a plot hook or as something to tie into the main story you wish to present, though it makes your world come alive because people are struggling. There's always something going on. In the midst of X, you must still do Y, while everyone else is distracted by X. Pardon. And the current calamity is number 17, besieged by enemies. Ooh, I wonder who the enemies are. And, I think I have a great idea for an adventure. And of course, tomorrow, to cap off the broadcast week, we're going to be making this monstrous adventure. But I'm going to hang on to that for just a moment as we continue to come down the chart here. Town name, we don't have that yet. Whether or not there's a religious... I'm sorry, pardon me. I'm not necessarily sleepy. I'm just, maybe I'm processing dinner or something, but I'm... Or it's a little warm. I have a fan, but it's a little far away off me here. First world problems, I know. But we have a religious building, and even many towns, with the exception if you have a hamlet. If I recall correctly, the definition of a hamlet is a town without a church. And if you go back to, feudal Europe, it was very common for a church or a chapel of some kind to exist, but there were small little farming, collectives that they would have to hit the road and go to the next town over. And so a town without a church was a hamlet, and it was kind of, we think of quaint hamlets, or maybe it's a very agrarian life or a very poor life, monetarily. Though in this case, especially because we have this matriarch, this queen priestess character, we're gonna have a religious building of some kind, and we're gonna roll a d20 for this, and then of course what wouldn't make for a great description of a place than what's the most popular inn or tavern to find information, a fight, good food, friends, whether they're longtime friends or you rent your friends by the hour. So we are going to roll 3d20. The first is going for the religious building, and the other two are going... actually, you know what? We're going to roll 4, because the tavern name generator is 2d20. So we're going to come back over here. We're going to go to 4d20 and hit it. 12, 5, 10, 17. 12, 5, 10, 17. 12, 5, 10, 17. Oh, I'm going to have to squish this down a bit, and there we go. This is going to have to come over. You know what? Let's move the PDF over this way. There we go. I'm sorry, it's contagious, old port. I'm trying to contain him. Hey, Putty-Ups, anyone buying minis to pop boxes? That's always fun to watch. Yes, Tamarick popped his first box of minis. And so we were very fortunate that he did so, and he ended up getting some really cool figures out of his Monster Menagerie 3 box. Let's scoot this over. The religious building that is housed in this maybe capital, or this, it could even be a frontier town, or whatever, this settlement, this area, is 12. A temple to a false deity run by charlatan priests. Ooh. The plot thickens, everyone. As you're building this in your own mind, are you having fun, especially with each passing revelation? This settlement has the potential to go full Python. Do you mean like Monty Python and be wacky and silly, or is that a term that I'm just not understanding, old port? Now, the best place in town to be is the tavern name generator says 5 and 10. So we have the Prancing Demon. And yeah, the player characters, or the players, let alone the player characters, may not know that this religion is either false, or, depending on how you want to extrapolate it, the religion could be real, but it's been taken over by charlatans. by body snatchers or just by people who are trying to corrupt the faith from within, or all manner of other interactions. Sometimes they do. That happens, Tamrick, in fiction and in real life. And what type of a tavern is the Prancing Demon? We rolled a 17. It caters to a specific race or guild. Now, if it caters to a specific race, we can always say, oh, well, it's probably going to be bugbears, or at least goblinoids, because they're the minority race, but they're the rulers. Though the Prancing Demon could very well be a Kenku bar, and wouldn't that be an interesting place to be, a Kenku bar? Or just because in a region you have a dominant of some kind of a demographic, doesn't mean you can't, the best place in town isn't, where you live, you might have a very fancy French restaurant. The menu's in French, and the waitstaff speaks French, and it's a French cook, even if you're living in the middle of Nebraska. Which, little Louisiana, it's not. And yet, it draws people who speak French, or at least people who want to be exposed to that culture. And so we could always roll a race, or depending on how we want to build the community, we could either roll for a random guild, and we can actually do that in the player's handbook. It'd be a D20 roll. This sounds like a Manhattan Purchase situation. Manhattan Purchase as in, I got I was going to say a bridge in Brooklyn to sell ya. Cajun Bugbears, I guarantee. So keep this in mind as we have our prompt, and we can take it as literal or metaphorically as we wish. We can take the idea and step sideways with it, even if we don't advance it directly. And look, sometimes I try not to have that happen, because I think we can make anything of anything here with our system that we use. Sometimes you just come up with something that is just, there's no way this is going to work. You tried it, you gave it a chance, and nothing's coming to mind, or it's completely... it was the one result on a roll 20 chart that you just couldn't handle, and you got it. And you can always re-roll if you wish. I will absolve you of doing so. Oh, yeah. Trade it for some shells and blankets. Yeah, Old Port. Okay, I got what you're talking about. Now, on this note, if the current calamity is being besieged by enemies, and we have a party that is setting out, right? The basic idea was, let's make a monstrous party and have them go out and interact with a normal normal player's handbook society, kind of like, traveling across the sea to the new world, or to make contact with, natives of another place. And what doing this settlement activity has done is we have this initial idea, and what if they're going out to try and find allies elsewhere? And we can roll that the enemies the enemies of these people are we're going to roll a 13-sided die twice once more. 11 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A hobgoblin. Oh, there's a feud going between the bugbears and the hobgoblins. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And the tabaxi. We have a tabaxi in the party, everyone. Now, that tabaxi, as we described her, was an orphan. And she was raised to, live properly and study the law and to, live in that society and not be, a drag on it. Now, we don't have a hobgoblin in the party, but we do have a goblin, a traditional small-sized goblin, who is torn between the people of the city, the bugbears, and her hobgoblin cousins also. And then, of course, we have a tabaxi, who is a friend, but also an enemy. And in fact, what we can do we can make a bit of a tale of two cities. And these two cities might exist. These two cities might exist kind of close by, or one can be larger than the other and is trying to annex it. And so why don't we run through this exercise all quick-like? Yeah, it could be across the river. It could be it says a river divides the city. The city we could just mean to be the region, and we could say that the river has like a northern or some other region, and then the other side is just that. So terrain types, in fact, we're going to go through the roles very quickly here. So we need 2d8. So we have 7 and 3. And then we'll go back and see what this means. The form of the government is going to be a percentile. We rolled an 18. We need 2 monuments in a weird locale. 11, 10, 6. Dominant race? Well, we know that 1, and we rolled it in this order. So we have hobgoblins and tabaxi. One, 2, 3, 4. We need 5d20. 7, 4, 6. 5 and 7. And we're going to need 4 more d20 rolls. 15, 2, 10, and 20. 15, 2, 10, and 20. Now it's time to crack open the books and let's find out what does this other city have going for it, right? The current calamity is besieged by enemies. Terrain types of 7 and 3. That is swamp and desert. So it would seem that they share the desert. And where this country or city or region lies has a notable swamp as well. The form of government, we're going to go back to... Oops, not that far. We rolled an 18. That is a confederacy. Each individual city or town within the Confederacy governs itself, but all contribute to a league or federation that promotes, at least in theory, the common good of all member states. Conditions and attitudes towards the central government vary from place to place within the Confederacy. The Lord's Alliance in the Forgotten Realms setting is a loose confederacy of cities, while the Mror Holds in the Eberron campaign setting is a confederacy of allied dwarf clans. Fluffy Sheep, I love the analogy to that mystery. The party contains a tabaxi, a kenku, a human, and a bag of birdseed. How can the human get the party across the river using the boat that can only carry 2 people? Good call on that one, Fluffy Sheep. The monuments that we rolled for this city or region are 11 and 10. A ruined or toppled statue of a person or deity. And 10 is an intact statue of a person or deity. Our weird locale was number 6. An ancient tree containing a trapped spirit. Now, we know that we have hobgoblins and tabaxi as our dominant minority races. What are the race relations like? We rolled a 7, and that is going to bring us to harmony. They live in a harmonious confederacy. The ruler's status is 4. Respected, fair, and just. Hey, Grimvex, welcome. Old Port Media smells vandalism, and maybe that vandalism could come from the other city, or at least suspected, and that's causing this siege. Whether it's a military siege, an economic embargo, or some other kind of a siege. The notable trait about this city, or this populace, is 6. A river divine. Everyone, this couldn't have been. It writes itself. And you know what, Old Port? You called it. A river divides the city. And so there we go. We had a 5% chance of that coming up again. And so it did. And so you can calculate the odds of rolling the same number twice on a d20. Or if you want to expand it even further, of all the d20s we've rolled in between that, to get that one to share the same number as what was called out. Maybe it's a red herring created by the government body as a just cause for an incursion into the town across the river. Orc. The plot thickens. Either that or we have some pessimistic and suspicious people in chat. Now, this place is known for its 5. A great hero or savior. Uh-oh. What if that person had their statue toppled? The current calamity going on is number 7, corrupt officials. Ooh. So the town across the river has a church that's been infiltrated by charlatans. Even if our player characters don't know this, we as dungeon masters do. And now, otherwise, in this harmonious confederacy of hobgoblins and tabaxi, there are corrupt officials. And things are getting a little spicy. The religious building in town, you know, maybe a tenant of faith, or at least a signal to show what these people believe in, is number 15. An abandoned shrine. Now we just need political factions, yeah. we're getting ultra deep. The best place in this town to get information or otherwise, tavern name is 2 and 10. Oh, again, what a coincidence. Hey, Random Hero, thanks for the follow. The Golden Demon. And of course, the best bar across the same river that we randomly rolled between these two factions, which we only developed the second one because the first one was being besieged by it, is the Golden Demon, as opposed to the Prancing Demon that is the best place across the river. Who owns this demonic chain of the best places to carouse? And lastly, the style of this tavern is number 20, a brothel. So you know how many people say that you only rent your alcohol? This is a place where you can rent alcohol, but you can also rent your friends. Quote unquote friends. And what this is telling us then, right? If this is catering to a specific race or guild, this might be a more commerce-driven society. This one, we have this confederacy. If the best place in town is a pillow house, then these people are probably more freewheeling, kind of loosey-goosey. Their morals are different than those of their neighbors across this river. A lawful, peaceful, agnostic society founded by a demon clad in gold. Interesting. The other town decided to mock them with their tavern. A possibility. Or we have someone who goes between the towns and uses that as, a franchise. It could be mocking. It could have been coincidence. It could be a coincidence by the same founder, or a coincidence by just maybe that year there was a demonic incursion and it was suppressed by the peoples of the lands. And so in celebration, the heroes took their fame and fortune and each invested into a place for other adventurers to go and put their feet up. And in this case, both of the major establishments independently are about demons. It could be the other town decided to capitalize on the fame of the old and so the other one could have copied after the fact. Yeah, prancing is, think like a satyr. Think kind of a merry skipping and dancing around. A capering, if you will. Yeah, the Ministry of Silly Walks. And now we have this really, really interesting story that we have told simply by making 2 setting pieces. Just by 2 setting pieces. So they both share this desert. So a desert's a very arid area. It doesn't mean it has to be abandoned of wildlife or plants. It simply means it doesn't get a lot of precipitation. And deserts can be very hot or very cold. Because, again, it's based on precipitation, not on temperature. The Prancing Demon being a mockery of the Golden? I could see it the other way around, too, where if the Golden Demon is one that shines, it brings fortune. Or the Golden, I'm golden in my behavior. This demon follows the Golden Rule. And if that's the case, the Golden Rule is do unto others what you would have them do unto you. And it's a brothel. Well, I mean, it's the menu. It's the business model. Exactly, TJ. Antarctica is a desert. So hey, welcome to the Golden Demon. We follow the golden rule here. And then there's a rate of doing unto others or having done unto you. Perhaps 2 different prices for the services. I'm keeping a PG-13 here, folks. What you think of in your own noggin is up to you. Grotzt. Yeah, you were just talking about Grotz. Was it last night, Old Port Media? So we have these societies. We have just a great amount of fun here as we've now built the backdrop. And you know what? Our main adventure could have nothing to do with this rivalry or this tension, this besieged, this economic or physical, like a warlike besieging. Though it's the backdrop and the impetus to send our adventurers out to go establish contact with other people to try and bring help. Do you see everything just by rolling some random dice over here? Everything that we have going on now. We have a living, breathing world. Yep, exactly, Orc. One tavern is mocking the other, maybe both. Old Port says, one of my favorite persistent characters, the Demon King of Lust and Pride, is a wonderful influencer because he is fine working with mortals and being subtle, so long as something is keeping him happy. Hey, Diadems, welcome! By the way, Diadems, congratulate Tamarick. He opened his very first box of minis with us tonight. And remember, we have a party that has a goblin, a kobold, a tabaxi, a Yuan-Ti pureblood, and a, why am I forgetting? Oh, and a full-blooded orc. That's right. Hey, Refry, welcome back. All right, so we have the starting. Yeah, TJ, yes. and actually, the Yuan-Ti pureblood is the only male in the party who is chaotic evil, and everyone else is some sort of a lawful good or lawful neutral aligned female character. Who's mocking who? Yeah. Now, while we're thinking settlements and we have the backdrop for all this, I want to make one more settlement, which is going to be the location that the party ends up after they cross the sea and find themselves in a normal, like a normal humanoid society. You know, there could be elves or tieflings or something else along those lines. You know, sort of your standard fantasy where we would have our heroes of gnomes and dragonborn set out to go face monsters and monstrous races. The whole point of the exercise that we've been doing last week and this week is to make a monstrous party that's going to go and investigate the wilds and find the natives who live there. You know, who are these strange creatures of, you know, soft flesh, in, you know, hues of red or or brown, or just these warm color, dark or pale, with all the weird eyes and all this. No reptilian features. How could they? And to explore the cultural differences. And so this last settlement we can create with some quick dice rolls and then an interpretation from the books is going to be our standard fantasy setting. That's going to be the exotic, far from home place where our monsters need to land, ingratiate themselves, and try and get help to bring back to ease the calamity going on with these two warring city-states. Because it's killing pocketbooks, it's killing people, it's killing trade or imagination, or it's weakening infrastructure. It could be angering the gods. Why not? End up in a human settlement, nobody bats an eye. The town is actually an elaborate setup of changelings and mimics. The ultimate twist. In before it's worse in both cities. Well, everyone, Old Port Media has been uncanny in calling the results of the rolls and such tonight. If any of you weren't here earlier, Old Port kind of threw out an idea that the absolute random dice rolls said, you know what, that's a good idea, and we're going to confirm that Old Port Media is actually a precog. The ultimate twist is to reveal the party has been exploring the world of Cthulhu's dreams. And so they actually are humans and gnomes and halflings this whole time. But it's only when they wake up do they realize that they aren't goblins and kobolds. All right, here we go. Our terrain types, 1 and 5. I'm gonna scoot this back over to make things easier. 1 and 5. Our form of government's a percentile. We rolled a 78. 3d20. So we have Monument 15. Monument 6. Weird Locale 15. Our dominant race and minority race. In the player's handbook, there are 9 races presented that are normal. Honestly, in the player's handbook, they actually split it up. Elves, dwarves, humans, and halflings are, by player's handbook standards, the core races. The others are referred to as uncommon races. Did you know that? So let's roll a 9-sided die, and we're going to roll it twice. 2 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to roll 5d20. 9, 15, 3, 20, and 6. And now I need 4d20 to find out some details of the life, the spiritual and commercial life of the frontier, the city that the monsters are going to land in. 10, 8, 8. It's okay that we have the same number here. And 3. All right, once more, to the books. Da-da-da-da-da-da. A Maddie mathematician. This establishment that they find themselves in, this town to make contact with these other mysterious races, non-monstrous races. 1 and 5. Arctic grassland. So it's kind of like they sailed from, Mesoamerican Washington, and they crossed the Bering Strait, and they ended up in. It's sort of like the reverse of what we consider the human migration to have been, and they end up in northeastern Russia. Or yeah, if you want to go the other way, they left Maine and they ended up going to Iceland or Greenland. Now we go to the Dungeon Master's Guide. The form of government that these people have, that the monsters are going to encounter, is 78. It's an oligarchy. An oligarchy it's a small group of folks who rule. A small number of absolute rulers share power, possibly dividing the land into districts or provinces under their control, or jointly ruling together. A group of adventurers who take control of a nation together might form an oligarchy. The Free City of Greyhawk is an oligarchy composed of various faction leaders with a Lord Mayor as their figurehead. In this case, you know what, why don't we do this? Why don't we have sort of this third race that, you know, whether it's dominant or minority, we could simply have this be, you know, a tertiary majority, but they might have a representative of everyone else who's not 2 or 5, and so we have this tribune running this place. Roll 1d9, and we have an 8. All right. Now, going back, we need to go to 118. Oh, 108. I went a little bit too far. The features of this place that our monsters are going to find. Number 15, a great stone wall in ruins. And number 6, an intact obelisk etched with a warning. So actually, in this case, warning, historical lore, dedication, or religious iconography. Let's roll a d4. 2. Option 2 is historical lore. An intact obelisk etched with historical lore. And what's weird about this place? Number 15, a haunted hill or a barrow mound. Ooh. What if, because our first location had a haunted hill or barrow mound, what if these are connected and actually early settlers of this like humanoid or normal races had come over and died here? The monsters came in, and somehow the barrow mounds are linked through, you know, the Shadowfell or through some kind of weird magic or spiritual whatever. And this is actually, you know, instead of crossing the sea on a ship, because maybe there's not one, maybe they're not close to the sea, but they want to head out or set out. Instead, this barrow mound spiritually connects this place. And so the hauntings can be from the original, the original inhabitants, or for some reason, each barrow mound carries a feeling of what's happening in the other place, and the voices of people who walk past. And so it's not haunted; it's simply two sides of a tunnel echoing what each other hear. And so that's why you get strange feelings and strange sounds. TJ says they encounter Panam from the Hunger Games universe. I don't remember who that character is, TJ. I'm sorry. Hey, XCat, welcome back. Now, in the player's handbook, there are 9 different races. And so we have 2, 5, and 8. So we have dwarf, so we have elf, and dragonborn. And this kind of tertiary race that has a representation in the oligarchy, perhaps for others who are living here, is number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Half-orcs. Hey! We have a connection now, not only for the Barrow, maybe in a way, but we have our full-blooded orc character, who might actually be brought in as a... an ancestor, or at least can make a connection. And of course, we have our kobold, who is now traveling to a land that has dragonborn in it. Now, they're not dragons, but they're definitely bigger than kobolds. And perhaps we can see just, you know, how many things these two cultures, these two people, have in common, from monstrous races to normal races, as we have these reflections. Panam is the name of the country. Ah, okay. Now, heading back to the Dungeon Master's Guide. The area that they find has race relations between at least these 3 races, if not, you know, a smattering of others. We rolled a number 9. A weakling manipulated by others. The ruler's status is 15. A doltish lout. We're thinking of the adventure. They arrive here. They find that the oligarchy is led by a weakling or weaklings manipulated by others. The rulers are doltish louts. This party steps up, earns a reputation, learns how to assert themselves into a people, into a society, into a culture. And by the time at the end of the game they head back to their hometown, they're ready to help set aside the differences of these two warring city-states that we've developed in the Monstrous lands, because they have gained the experience by helping these others. Now, what's a notable trait about this oligarchy? Number 3, there is a grand temple of some kind. Could that temple be linked to, you know, across the sands or seas or what have you? Could be. This place is known for its patriotism. And so while they're led by these kind of doltish louts, but people believe in the concept of this place. We believe in us, in everything that we've done to establish ourselves. And yeah, we may have poor leaders, but we're believing in the ideal. The leader is simply a functionary of the ideal. Which actually might mean if the Monstrous Party learns about this, they could enact the change in this society to get these people out, because we have this power, we have this need to reform and be a stronger city-state or nation or even just a remote town. And heck, we have half-orcs. We have half-orcs or a kobold that are here. I don't know if there's really an equivalent we rolled for an elf, unless we want to say that our Yuan-Ti pureblood might pass. And wouldn't that be something if they end up being nominated by the people by towards the end of this adventure? You know, you're outsiders, but you reflect us. You reflect our ideals. You know, calling out the BS. You know, stepping up in this case, and to lead us towards the things that we believe in, instead of just, you know, a managed decline. That would be cool. You're not necessarily the big hero because you slayed the dragon. You're the big hero because you solved another person's problems. I mean, you could say that's arguably what taking out a dragon is, but you get what I'm saying. Now, the current calamity, because again, everyone has something going on, is number 6. There's a plague or a famine that's sparking riots. Actually, I should just roll odds or evens. Odds, it's a plague, or evens, it's a famine. Evens. A famine is sparking riots. Seriously, this is reading like a lot of... Well, we can take the things that we know in our world and interpret it into a fantasy setting. You know, a lot of... many books and movies and comics and all this are satire of the society in which each of us live. You know, wherever you're at, whether it's, you know, we're talking about, you know, when I say a leader is a doltish lout, the first person who comes to mind might be a city council member. Because you're happy with the leadership in the equivalent of your county or state or country. And yet there's that guy, he probably lives 2 blocks away from you, and just an absolute buffoon. How do you ever get elected to town council or city council? And so we can take these experiences on any scale and put them into the game and explore them. There is not a druid in the party, TJ. Maybe the monsters can help alleviate the famine? Their culture would have different techniques. And they could also open up different food sources. You know, goblins and kobolds have a different diet than dragonborn and elves. And they might find, right, we have this Arctic grassland. What if there is a bunch of, I don't know, a bunch of worms that can survive in the cold within the roots of the grasslands? And the worms are everywhere. I mean, you can't dig you can't dig a square foot without turning up 1,000 of them. And now suddenly we learn that worms are full of protein and minerals. I mean, because they are. And you know, and because of the eating habits of these other people, suddenly what was always turned into kind of like a children like it, it's kind of gross, farmers are like whatever, they can help grow our crops, but something's going on. Or maybe the worms, there's too many worms, that's what's causing the famine, but no one ever thought about eating the worms. And so by eating all the worms, that's how you do it. Giant purple worms. You can eat a giant purple worm. There's plenty of prizes inside if you can get that far. As we learned on Tuesday, giant purple worms will also eat you. The religious building in town, which is probably this grand temple, there's some kind of a large manifestation of faith. The religious building is 10. Temple to a good or neutral deity. Now, good or neutral is to that society. We have these monstrous people coming in, and they're being like, "Yeah, just eat the worms if they're damaging your crops." What? How? What primitive savages? What are you talking about eating worms? I'd never be caught eating a worm. Oh, what sort of cruel god do you worship under? And then whatever, the kobold's like, yeah, we worship this goddess of life and death, and her holy symbol is her putting down a sick dog while being pregnant with triplets or something like that. I mean, it's a very practical god or something like along those lines. And so you have these what we consider to us as human beings, as players. We're all human beings, right? Could be garish or revolting or an evil faith, holds the answer. Or neutral good, says Tamrick. We are vegans. We don't eat animals. X-Cat is giving me the slanty eyes. X-Cat, we're all humans here, right? Orc says, I can neither confirm nor deny that I am a human. Now, the best place to go in this establishment or in this city to get some info or a drink or whatever is named 88, the Howling Wolf. Maddie, you know that we are all just manifestations of your imagination. Now listen to the nice nurse and eat your salsa. We are worried about you. What a twist. TJ, my dreams. Oh, gosh. And what type of a tavern is the Howling Wolf? We rolled number 3. The Howling Wolf is a quiet, low-key bar. Kind of ironic. So I guess it's just the plank hanging on the outside that's loud. We love you and only want the best for you. Thank you, TJ. The salsa has some special seasoning. You know what? I actually haven't had chips and salsa in a couple days, so maybe I am hallucinating. Every time Maddie rolls something, he is just on the floor rolling. They're coming to take me away. Either that or I'm talking about worms because they're, worms. Did someone say worms? And that whole chant. They took me away, put me in a padded room. There was worms there. I eat worms, or I lived there, or died there, was buried there, buried with worms. Worms? Did someone say worms? Eat your salsa, Maddie. Oh, some very nice men in clean white coats are walking into the room. Hi, guys. We discussed throat worms, or throat leeches. Throat leeches. Last night, maybe the night before. But yes, the topic of throat leeches did come up. We have all the makings for a grand adventure for tomorrow. We're writing this ourselves. All right, so what we're going to do, we have a lot of prompts. I'm going to get up and take a break. Maybe I'll get some salsa. Actually, I have some queso I got to put away even before the salsa. So maybe, unless I want to make a salsa con queso? Maybe a queso con salsa? Anyway, I'll get a snack and come back. And when we do, I'm going to load up MS Paint, and we're going to draw a map that will have the elements of these places. We'll talk about a little more. We can draw some information off the character sheets as well. And we can plot out some adventure locations and get practice doing map making in a very simple program, MS Paint. So be right back in about 10 minutes or so, everyone.